Hello. Game designer Tuomas Pirinen is responsible for some absolutely incredible fan favourite games, from Mordheim to Warhammer Fantasy's 6th edition to the modern Trench Crusade, which has become a phenomenon already. It is true that Thomas's work fully embraces the grimdark aesthetic, and that's perhaps no surprise given his long collaboration with John Blanche. In this interview, I got to speak to Tuomas about his long history of collaboration with John Blanche and some of the absolutely iconic and incredible games that they have created together, including their most recent project, John Blanche's On Garde, a 54mm dueling game that is on the precipice of release right now. We talked about their collaborative process, what it's actually like to work with a grimdark master like John Blanche, and how their latest game On Garde has come together. I'm Jordan, this is Jordan Sorcery, and today I'm in conversation with Tuomas Pirinen. Tuomas, thank you so much for joining me once again. We're going to chat about your long sort of partnership, I suppose, creative collaboration with John Blanche. We're going to explore some of the work you've done more recently with him in Trench Crusade and On Garde. But I thought a nice place to start would be those early days, the Mordheim and the Warhammer 6th edition, when you really sort of were working together very closely to create a sort of new vision for the Warhammer world. I mean, how did you first end up in that quite close collaboration with John Blanche?
It's at that point, John obviously had already been a legendary artist. Even when he joined the Games Workshop, I think was it early 80s or late 70s, he was already like well-established artist with the art in the Tolkien bestiary and other places. He'd done a lot of stuff like Conan illustrations and whatnot. There's a lot of stuff, because his career was so long. Obviously, incredible run with the fighting fantasy books and so on and so forth. So he was this big important art director, and he kept an eye on all the talent, because he obviously were used to working with Brian Ansell, Rick Priestley, Alan Merritt. He didn't have a need from his position to engage with anybody he didn't want to, because normally he just worked with the senior artists. But for some reason, he found that working with me was something he enjoyed. So I think with him, it's the non-verbal understanding, like instinctive understanding of grimdark, how he sees the art style, is that he gravitates towards. So I obviously had no pull or sway to tell John what to do. He came to me and started working with me, and we were on the same wavelength. We talked about the stuff, we agreed on things, we fed each other, and I think that's what John thrives. His inner circle's never been huge. He's actually, despite his, the back then he was obviously driving his Harley Davidson, and he had this very bike rocker kind of look. He's actually a reasonably private person and a family man, so he doesn't let people close to him all that easily. So it was just John's decision that he thought that I had something that he felt he could work with. And if you look at our work together in the Realm of Chaos, the Vampire Counts, the Mordheim, and of course 6th edition, that was very fruitful partnership, which I think both of us just instinctively gravitated working together, and I always found my partnership with him extremely easy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, really, because I imagine, and well, I guess you could speak to this. Well, like, as a young designer, was it quite intimidating, sort of working with someone who was so well established and so central to Games Workshop even then?
Oh yes, I mean, to me, if I look at the seminal pieces of fantasy art, to me, include things like the Barad-dûr that John did for the Tolkien bestiary, which is mind-blowing. The Fall of Gondolin, the Battle of Five Armies, those are pieces that made me who I am. And I knew John's name already back then. Of course, then I saw it in White Wolf and so on and so forth. And then he's there in the flesh. But the thing about John is that if he engages with you, he's not loud. He's not boisterous. He can be, when he's happy, but on work he is actually quite, how would I say, a thoughtful and measured, and not loud, and very personal and intimate. He crouches down. A lot of his art pieces that the you think are these gigantic paintings. He does those too, like enormous paintings, but a lot of it is like the Knight's Panther, which is a legendary painting, is very small. He works on these very gem-like pieces. A lot of his art, everybody think is giant, but it's very, very small. So his way of working often is also like we look at the reasonably small piece of art and we discuss it. He pays us so much attention to detail. A lot of people find his art style messy and his painting style messy. That is not true at all. Everything he does is very, very carefully measured. The chaos is calculated in a way.
Sure. Yeah, and because he has, as an artist, and there's a lot of great artists in the history of Games Workshop and Warhammer, and many who have been able to capture the essence of chaos. But John Blanche's version of chaos and the way in which he brings it to life feels like one of the most iconic, one of the sort of most impactful versions of that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember that especially in the formative years, how almost every project in Games Workshop started art-wise was that the John would paint or draw. He was, especially in his pencil period, he was incredible with his pencil artwork. He would do this like what I would now call key art that really established a faction or an army or a nation or a game, and then the artists would gather around. So he was quite often the root for everything. It's the people, of course, mainly players remember him from his most iconic pieces, like the Emperor on the Golden Throne, or the Ultimate Gate, or the cover of the second or third edition, whatever. I mean, there are so many iconic John Blanche pieces. The cover of Sisters of Battle, so many great fantasy pieces. But what people don't see is he did way, 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 way more pictures just to guide other artists. So his influence is far greater than people even realize.
Sure, yeah. And I imagine that's quite an interesting thing, sort of having been behind the curtain. Like I'm guessing there's a lot of stuff that people have just never even seen because it was loose sketches or concepts or things like that that didn't make it into final products, but has actually like permeated and echoed through all of those other works in so many ways. I mean, that must be quite a special place to be in as well, having seen the sort of process and the earlier stuff and the unpublished stuff too.
And John can be ridiculously funny because he makes these art plans and then he writes all over it with his unimitable handwriting and puts a lot of jokes in there. It's it was very enjoyable experience to sort of peek behind the magician's curtain, but what people have to realize, it's just a lot of really hard work of planning, thinking, turning ideas into art, reading what I've written, and then interpreting that into how would this look in a book, planning the page layouts, where does the full pages go, which pieces are color, which are not. And also, I mean, John's always been painting miniatures at all times. Which also had a huge influence on the heavy metal team, not necessarily on the technical aspect, because his style is very different than the box cover art, but the color schemes, the themes, the concepts, and then all the discussions with the miniature sculptures, the chosen few that he interacted with. There is a lot more. It's like the iceberg. What you see of John Blanche is the tip, and his actual work is unfortunately, is something that, because it's not product to be sold, you can't see, and untold tons of it are in the Games Workshop archives, of course.
Sure, of course, yeah. I mean, it's really interesting as well to sort of see how John Blanche's legacy in more recent years has taken on a real life of its own. So, obviously, there's a lot of games exploring this sort of grimdark space. There's even been a documentary about it recently, like really exploring like the way in which he has helped to shape the visual identity of Warhammer and 40K and those kinds of games, but taking it into lots of other worlds and lots of other games. I mean, that must have been quite nice, as a long time collaborator with John to see that happen as well.
There is, like, in the video games industry, in movie film industry, there are people who are deeply impacted and influenced by John. He is, I always say, he is the grand old man of British science fiction and fantasy art. Name me one that has more influence globally. I don't think you can put a viable candidate. You have people who maybe have a more influence in a single genre or a intellectual property, and of course Warhammer and 40k. That's already two properties. John has more influence there, but we also have to remember how long his career is and how important the all those early pieces and the pieces he's done for other intellectual properties are. And in some ways, it would be nice if John had like 50 lifetimes and he could have worked at Hollywood or at the other great game or a fantasy properties and brought it into them. Because of course doing a huge intellectual property like Warhammer, that takes a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And one person can't be everywhere. But it's sometimes fun to think that imagine if John would have stayed with Middle Earth. Quite possibly he would have influenced the films. Quite a lot as because he's recently done some work for a American film as a concept artist. Which I'm not going to spoil anything, but just absolutely stunning and so original pieces that they go so beyond what you expect to see. So I think John's influence, again, we talk about that iceberg, is that most people just don't realize how much there is through the artists who've seen his work and are influenced by it.
Sure, yeah, I can completely believe that. That's really fun to hear as well. He's sort of working in those spaces, but it feels like, and hopefully things like that recent documentary and other stuff in this space will continue to sort of explore John Blanche's legacy and talk more about it. Because I agree, I think he deserves to be talked about on that global scale, given the amount of influence he's had on so many different creatives, not just at the tabletop, but way beyond it. It does seem like, maybe it's sort of hidden a little bit behind the Warhammer, isn't it? Despite the fact that it's got an outsized impact on so much.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, when it comes to, because a lot of people focus on technical, the side of the art. By the way, John could absolutely do extremely technical pieces. People are easily forgetting, like I mentioned, his pencil work, which was incredibly technical. It's just that he likes to change his styles. But in some ways, I think people they look at Warhammer, and it's like it's on the palm here is the Warhammer art style, but they don't see that it's Blanche who is holding Warhammer art style in his palm, taking nothing away from the other artists. This is by no means their work is just as important. It's important when you say art director doesn't mean to anybody that makes you more important than the people doing the art, but it is a different role. So John's role, even for he's an artist, is his job was to infuse the Warhammer and 40k with a unified style and feel that is grimdark.
Sure, yeah, and we'll loop back around to John in a second, because obviously you've worked together with him on this on Garde game, but you're doing a lot of work at the moment on Trench Crusade as well, which has itself been driven by the sort of initial vision, the singular vision of an artist in Mike Francina. So, is there an element of similarity in that kind of collaboration?
Absolutely, there is. Like, I found that since working with John, I haven't had quite the same connection with an artist until I met Mike. It's funny thing, of course, because if you ask who is Mike Francina's idol, he'll immediately say it's John Blanche. He's the artist he respects above all. So the connection is there again, and we are talking. Because Mike is a little bit younger than me, so I can see the generations. That the John's influence is but that's what you get with such a long and enduring career. So very much I see similarities there. A lot of this has to do that there are lots of great artists, but in order to make a shared creative project like a game, there has to be like a meeting of minds. The artist, the designer, the writer, if it's the miniature sculptor, if it's a video game, the lead writers, programmers. You have a unified vision that you all can stand behind, and you are of one mind, if not perfectly, then at most of the time. So that I definitely got that with Mike. But of course, we also have John's pieces in Trench Crusade, which I am extraordinarily proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that must have been great to get that opportunity to bring him in on this new project and sort of get his perspective on a different world. Like
Mm.
obviously there are elements of inspiration drawn
Mhm.
from
Mhm.
John's previous work, but having him play in the Trench Crusade universe must be quite fun to see.
Oh, it is because for him, the funny thing is that he can actually draw anything. Like he's been drawing lately his family tree, so he's taking all the photos of his forefathers and mothers, and the drawing pictures and his living relatives.
Wow.
If you go to his home, he has all sorts of art that he's done. It's the again, you're just seeing such a tiny part of John Blanche there, but I think he's a very much an art chameleon.
Hmm.
He can do anything he really sets his mind to. Of course, he did his life work at the Games Workshop, and he took it extremely seriously, his duties. Um, there is the when we're working on Realm of Chaos, there is the famous picture of the castle of uncanny symmetry, and we were so tight on deadline, and we still had to do one full page illustration. So what John did, he painted half of the castle, and then we mirrored it. So we made it on time. He made sure that things. He was very big believer in being professional and the getting stuff done. You can only imagine the amount of effort, like the third edition 40K cover painting, which is gigantic. These are the kind of things that the great masters took sometimes many years to make. It was 3 months of intense work from John to paint that. And again, these kind of things, you get the end product, but the sometimes it's good to stop and look at the amount of effort it takes to pull one of those things off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was I mean, it's a number of years back now, but there was like an art gallery showing, wasn't there, of Games Workshop art in the early
Yeah.
2000s. It feels like there's, there ought to be the John Blanche sort of gallery and an opportunity for people to come and check out some of his originals. I think that would be really fascinating.
Oh, I agree. They had a exhibition of John's art in the Luca Games and Comics, which is one of the world's largest conventions. There's a video also on that. It was 2019, I think, something like that.
Right.
And I wish there was a permanent gallery in Nottingham. They should celebrate there. In many ways, it's the one of the most famous artists ever to come out of that famous city.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just thinking about the sort of Trench Crusade work you're doing at the moment,
Mm,
you stepped away from tabletop game design for a period
mm,
and you were working on video games and things like that. You've come back into the tabletop space in a big way over the last few years.
mm,
And Trench Crusade has been phenomenally successful. You're working on Garde with John Blanche and other
mm.
stuff. What's it like coming back in and not just coming back into tabletop, but really like, announcing I'm back.
Yeah. Oh, super satisfying. I mean, obviously, I started with D&D and Warhammer. My heart's always been in tabletop. Do not get me wrong. I absolutely loved working on video games, and like I said, technically speaking, I still do. Uh, but there is a great satisfaction in that the what you do is in part the final product, that the final game that the players get. With video games, the teams are now hundreds and hundreds of people, and even the most impactful person only does a tiny little bit. And there is something great about this team effort. And there is obviously a team on tabletop, but it is smaller, and your footprint or fingerprint is much more visible,
Mm.
because you don't need 200 game designers to write a tabletop game. At least I hope you don't. Very expensive to do it that way. So I enjoyed it tremendously. But on the flip side, I also want to stress it is not as different as people think. At the end of the day, you're dealing with numbers, probabilities, how to convey what the player needs to do. It is not as different for a game designer as people might think, because I'm not a programmer. Uh, if I was a programmer, things would be vastly different. But in many ways, I do very, very closely what I was doing in video games. But I think maybe the closeness to the community is something that I was missing a little bit.
Right, sure, yeah. Yeah, I suppose the opportunity to even be at the table looking at people playing your game and playing against them, you can literally sort of you can see it. You can see them doing it. That was going to be nice.
Oh yeah, yeah, and the that was nice. We just had a European Championships of Trench Crusade in Belgium, but also on Garde, which is even more intimate game because it's a dueling game. You get even more sort of that intensity that the you get. What I like about small scale games that your focus becomes so. Uh, Driven to the like very few choices you make on tabletop, it becomes very very personal and I think very in some ways very meditative thing because then you're focusing so hard you forget about your phone, your computer, social media, and these little miniatures and the fantastical world on the tabletop. For a while you get to go to the Never Never Land.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's a terrific form of escapism, isn't it? It's really
Mm,
good.
mm,
I mean,
mm.
speaking of Vanguard, then, like, how did you become involved in this project? Was it just you heard it was going on, or was someone were you reached out to?
Well, I've been talking to John a fair bit more after he retired. It's because when he retired, I put the message out. And then I woke next morning and there were tens of thousands of notifications on my social media. And I realized I was the only one who had said that. So the news went out and all the news sites picked it up. And I was rather surprised that this was not, how would I say, that I was the source of information, but I've already, when there was a Mordheim 20-year anniversary and John came to Finland, we had a good chance to reconnect. And I've been keeping close at tabs. And John's been talking a long time wanting to do a dueling game. He loved doing Inquisitor. He loved 54 mil. And he loves this sort of the golden age of dueling, the sort of the decadent splendor that there was in the Venice at the high days of dueling. And he wanted to bring that to tabletop, and he was working on these magnificent duelists, designs, artwork, sketches. And honestly, I couldn't really let any other game designer to do it. I mean, I would have been so mortally upset. I thought that it doesn't matter how busy I am. I'm doing this game because I am. It's such a important part of my career, my collaboration with John Blanche, that I thought that I feel. I'm not saying because I'm doing it for enjoyment, but I do feel a little slightly unbound that or maybe rather going that, hey, everybody else, keep your hands off. I'm doing this with John. Mm.
Sure.
But it's really driven by John's desire to see this game happen.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because John Blanche had done a series of miniatures at something around this scale in the past, didn't he? They were non-Games Workshop. They were his own
Oh,
Femme Militant that were
oh
like
yeah.
essentially the same kind of duelist, really beautifully designed John Blanche
Mm.
characters
Yeah, yeah.
by a range of amazing sculptors. I mean, it's almost it seems from the outside like perhaps this game has always been in his head and he's always been
Yeah.
working towards it.
Yeah, I think it's his creative process probably led him that he came up with these designs and slowly started thinking what the world they might be in, what they might be used in until he sorted out, of course, it's the Inquisitor. Inquisitor was a very dear project to him, just like Mordheim. These are duelists. We should make a dueling game. Of course, John is not a game designer. It's it was sort of a very natural fit for us to team up. So, and honestly, it is such a clear, concise vision. It's the dueling in sort of a fantasy version of a Venice and maybe a couple of other cities. It's the right roads with the sunken colossi on its harbor combined together, where all the greatest duelists around this world that John's created come together and the fight battles of honor. In many ways, it was very easy to work on it because there really isn't like the scope and the focus is so clear. So you don't start thinking about what are the rules for the sailing ships or international trade in this world, because what matters is the intense duel is the fought in this beautiful, splendid, decaying alley.
Sure, yeah. Does that make the actual sort of rule design process easier or harder? Because I guess, you don't have anywhere to hide because it's
No.
so focused on that
E-
specific interaction.
Easier.
Right.
Imagine if I asked you to write two stories. One I said, write anything you want. And the second one I'd say, write a story set in a oil rig in 1947. You'd probably, the latter story would be much better. Because what happened on that year? Oh, it's just after the Second World War. Oil rig is isolated in the middle of the sea. There could be a storm. While the other one, you are lost in this is fog. The challenge really came more from the pure design side, that there's been many dueling games in the past, but they've always, in my mind, suffered from the problem that you have like two guys standing in front of each other and then you roll off who wins. All the stuff about the moving backwards and forwards and dodging and the dirty tricks, the kind of stuff that happened in the Princess Bride's duel, have
Sure.
been mainly missing, or they are very abstracted. Now, I'm not bad mouthing. There are lots of duel games that I think are great, but the kind of feel that you want, this dynamism, movement, is the taking a back step, lunging forward, is desperate parries. I haven't gotten that in any dueling game I played, so I really wanted to bring that to the gaming world.
Right, great, yeah. So how did you do that? How did you make the mechanics that represent that and give that feel?
Yeah, so I will speak a little bit boring game design, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. So basically, each duelist builds a deck of cards that represent all the possible moves they can make. And these could be lunges or the backflips or backstabs, depending on your position. They could be like trips. They could be taking a swig of rum if you happen to be a dueling pirate. And these will have gameplay effects. And every card can also be, if you don't want to use it, you can put it down, and that allows you to move one square. So there could be like you're in close combat with the opponent with two daggers. They are very deadly close by. So you use one card to step back, and then you are armed with a longsword. You use a lunging attack, which is more effective from distance. It's so there is always this dance, and some moves require you like the run past the opponent and strike them in the back, so you need to plan your moves ahead. You always roll a dice in the start of every turn, which represents the energy or opportunities you have, and then the cards have costs to pull off attacks. Of course, more powerful attacks, you need a more dice or higher dice or certain numbers. But then some cards which represent your thinking and planning, allow you to manipulate those dice. So it becomes this dance of the movement, attacks, parries, dodges, and the game mechanics strongly it's the favor mobile fighters. So just standing in the front of the other guy is usually very dangerous. It's the you want to fight in your optimal distance. You want to strike, then the fall back. You might have a dueling pistol. You don't want to do that in close combat because it's easier to parry it, and so on and so forth. Um, uh, and obviously, I am the most biased person in the world, but I'm pretty happy with the system.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it sounds like it really gives a level of dynamism to it because I think you're right in that you can often get games that feature dueling can sometimes end with you sort of line up face to face, and then that's it. That's where you are, and then it's just stab and parry and stab and parry, and there isn't as much movement and there isn't as much incentive to move around. It's nice to hear that that is quite like baked in. That's a big part of the system.
Yeah. And there is also like this system of there is like once you depleted the health of opponent, they have couple of the desperation hit points, which then it doesn't matter how powerful your attack, it only takes 1 point unless you pull off a killing blow. But the killing blow might require you to first that the opponent has to be tripped, and then you need the coup de grace strike, which then takes all the remaining health away. And then that also almost always requires maneuvering preparation. It's the tricks using the terrain, like kicking the opponent against the wall and then doing a double-handed pierce to heart. So you're playing with the distance and position a lot, which gives it that kind of a feeling that I don't know if you've seen Rob Roy,
Sure.
but that was the final duel, which I love. It's absolutely incredible. I wanted you to feel like that when you're playing it, but I also wanted a game that's super easy to start playing. So 2 models, very small mat with squares that represents the place where the duel takes place. Both players have the deck they've done, and a couple of dice, and that's it. And you're on the board. It's uh, so I wanted something that requires much less preparation. So instead of building a list and the once you have your deck, you just have it always. And you just shuffle it, and you deal every cards and every turn, and you look at your dice and see what options you have.
Sure, yeah. When you say building the deck, does that allow for sort of expanded like new cards to come out and for you
Yeah,
to have new options as well?
absolutely. And the idea there is that of course, John is a art and model driven
Hmm.
person. That when we would have, like, if you decide to give your guy a dagger and a rapier, then you would match your deck. We give a recommendation that wherever possible, the card should match your equipment. We are not going to force that, of course, people like that. But I think a lot of people will want to make their own duelist that have the own arms and weapons, and then the deck will allow them to replicate that duelist that they've built or customized or modified in the deck faithfully, so it fights in a way that the model is built and armed.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, and having seen some of John Blanche's artwork to represent these different characters, these different duelists, I mean they are incredible. It's amongst his best work in the sense that these are really characterful, exciting and interesting characters. It must have been great to see them for the first time,
Yeah.
to be writing rules
Yeah.
for them.
Oh, it makes it so easy because quite often, and again, this is not a slight on anyone, quite often designer has to try to imagine that final piece of art in their mind and describe the weapons, armor, what kind of hat they have. It's the boots, hidden weapons. But John, when he makes a sketch, he doesn't need any of that, especially since this is his own world. And they are so brimming with details and ideas that you can just, of course, he's done this forever. John is an expert at both art but also miniatures, so he thinks of the model that will come out. Often as a designer, you have to describe the weapons, the armor, the hidden objects, the interesting details, the ring that stores a spell or whatever. But John does that all for you. You just get this lavish piece that's already like thought out how this will make a great model, and gives you tons of ideas how to write the rules, which isn't always the case. But in John's case, you get so much for free as a game designer. That is absolutely makes my life so easy.
Sure, yeah, and the miniatures themselves as well really do seem to be able to bring that Blanchian feel to life as well.
Yeah.
So they've done a really nice job with it.
Yeah, I think there is the 54 mil scale, which everybody would normally consider mad. It gives John's designs room to breathe, and I see these going to be very popular with the collectors, painters, and the sort of the John Blanche aficionados
Mm.
who really appreciate all that the intricate detail, which I think can sometimes get lost in 32 mil miniatures, especially once your eyes are not as good as they used to be. And I think the people at the Grimdark Compendium who painted the first ones, they've done absolutely spot on job. And I think for a lot of these miniature sculptures, the chance to work with John and on his art, I mean, that's kind of nice thing to have in your resume, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. I imagine it would be an opportunity that was hard to say no to for any sculptor.
Mm.
Did that scale affect? I mean, is there any kind of significant changes you had to make in the design process to accommodate that scale?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, so it wouldn't take a huge amount of space. We had to limit the size of the dueling arena, which I think works better anyway, because it gives tactical options then that if there are walls here, then if you push somebody against the wall, that allows for different kinds of moves.
Mm.
But the idea always was that this is not a game that takes a huge amount of time to set up or masses of space or requires tons of scenery that you can just roll your mat and start playing. So because the models are larger, it also meant that the fighting arenas in either would have to be huge, which is not practical, but the now you have to limit yourself to a very confined space, which I think works in the favor of the game because it creates more gameplay situations rather than if you had this humongous, massive open field.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And can you like, you know, do you interact? You mentioned like the walls and you can knock people into. Is there a lot of interaction with the terrain and with the sort of the features of the board?
Yeah, yeah. So we have like a rules for item, which could be a chest, a barrel, a candelabra, whatever, and then there is like options to throw them or to push enemies into them or jump on top of them. We abstract it a little bit so people would have a little bit more leeway to build the model. So the jumping on table slash chair slash barrel uses the same rules course. It's anyway a great scene that you jump on top of barrel and then you can do a backflip over the opponent. Then you pick the backstab. It's the which then does double damage. And we want it to be fluid. So you don't want to be in a situation that it's the rules say it's a four-legged chair and this chair is three-legged, so you can't use the card. We tried to give a much more open-ended and free uses of the environment. But yeah, there is like basically a couple of categories that a piece of scenery can be, and that frees up if somebody wants to build the fighting arena as a full model. They have a little bit more leeway on how they do it rather than that it has to be exactly a barrel of this many millimeters high.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously, John Blanche's work on Garde is absolutely stunning, and I think there's going to be a lot of people who are really excited about it. I mean, do you see are there other projects that John's working on, or that you and John are working on that are out there? Is there potential in the future for more of
Yeah.
that kind of stuff?
I mean, John is always working on stuff, and there are several projects that are not gaming related that he is quite interested in. However, I think we should let him reveal those in his
Sure.
good time, and also. How would I say it's obviously he's not as young as before and he'd had to struggle with his health. He's been quite open about that. People can't expect him to work like if he was a teenager again. So we try to. What I'm so happy about that for On Guard, we already have everything we need from him.
Mhm.
That he did the entire range and the world creation. It's the visual world creation beforehand. So we don't need anything else from him. We came like we have everything. We don't have to ask for anything extra. Maybe have one of the artists who want to do homage and tributes to do stuff like the extra illustrations or the whatnot. But
Sure.
the I would say when it comes to new stuff from John is the it's better to wait and see and give the maestro his own time and space and the hope a continuous health that allows him to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
I know you've got loads on between On Guard and Trench Crusade and other stuff as well. But are there other projects that you're working on in the future that you think are going to come out at some point?
I honestly think that aside from and God and supporting it and the also depends on what kind of reception it has. If
Mhm.
there is a lot of people who really enjoy it and they want more, then we should look into that. But otherwise, I think my immediate future that I can see will be devoted to Trench Crusade, which became by huge magnitude of order bigger than I ever could have dreamed of. It's I think we just had on the first few days we just put a new rules revision out. It was immediately downloaded 207,000 times, which is for a tabletop game. You know that the scales is usually like maybe 100 of that is good.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. And it has been such a success and a phenomenon in and of itself. I mean, I know as you're moving into new worlds with it, you've obviously got the game, the sort of core books being published and the plastic miniatures on the way. It's probably something that we should get together and talk about in more detail at some point in the
Yeah.
future and to explore the future of Trench Crusade too.
I would love to do once you have the book in your hands that we could go
Yeah.
through it and the look at all the art and inspirations and the lore and the discuss how the book was made, because it's a very unusual book because for example, almost all of the quotes you see in the book are handwritten. They are not digital. We really want the same thing for almost all of the graphic design. They are scanned linoprints rather than digital art, which nothing wrong with digital art, but it's nice to bring some of that old craftsmanship that maybe the newer generations of the game fans haven't experienced and encountered, because we've moved away from that in the last 20 years quite a lot.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I think that would be really fun. And actually, just remind me of one final question, I suppose, around On Guard, is that there's a lot of traditional work involved in the creation of those miniatures as well, isn't there? So that's quite nice to see
Yeah.
the hand sculpted miniatures making their return there.
Oh yeah, it's part of this. I think is that it's a celebration of human creativity, and in some ways, it's the extremely suitable that we are using traditionally sculpted miniatures. Again, I don't think one side is superior to other in sense that both of them are created by very talented creative people who are good at their job, but it's nice to show different aspects of the hobby and the game creation that again maybe not all of the newer generation fans have ever been exposed to.
Sure. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, Thomas, hopefully we do get that chance to talk again about Trench Crusade when it's time. But for now, thank you so much for joining me. It's been terrific to chat.
Absolutely a pleasure, Isti, and I'm sure we will talk about Trench Crusade for many years to come.
Fantastic. Enormous thanks to Thomas for joining me once again to chat. It was an absolute pleasure, and as ever, I just learned so much interesting stuff. Thank you, Thomas. If you would like to find out more about On Guard, this interview was actually part of a longer series that I have put in their entirety on my Patreon, and there's also an edited anthology of interviews about On Guard, including part of a conversation with John Blanche himself, that you can see on the Jordan Sorcery Pods channel right now. I've included a link to that in the description below. There's also links to the On Guard website, so you can check out everything you need to know about the upcoming game. And of course, you can check out patreon.com/Jordan Sorcery for early access and exclusive content, like a previous exclusive interview that I did with Tuomas Pirinen about Mordheim. All of that, as well as articles, Patreon blog posts, podcasts. There's lots of interesting stuff and free content as well if you just want to find out a little bit about the history of Warhammer and Games Workshop. Thank you once again to Thomas. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jordan, and this is Jordan Sorcery.